It is tempting to think of history as something cleanly divided into good and evil, winners and losers, but the truth is often murkier, far more unsettling. Take the story of Bayer, the pharmaceutical giant whose logo adorns painkillers and vitamins on shelves worldwide. It is a story that begins in the soot and smoke of industrial Germany, passes to one of the darkest regimes in human history, and emerges into our own time as a polished billion-dollar empire. But that shine hides shadows long and deep. Bayer was founded in 1863 in Barmen, Germany, at a time when Europe was racing to the Industrial Revolution. The company's early focus was on synthetic dyes, supplying textiles with brilliant colors. But chemistry was advancing quickly, and Bayer soon expanded into pharmaceuticals. It was this shift that would forever change its destiny and ours. In 1899, Bayer introduced aspirin, a drug that would become one of the most widely used medicines in the world. But just 1 year earlier, they had proudly brought something else to market: heroin, not as an illicit drug, but as a miracle medicine. Bayer promoted heroin as a safe, non-addictive substitute for morphine, even suggesting it for children with coughs. Doctors prescribed it widely, unaware, or perhaps unwilling to see, the destruction it caused. Addiction spread, lives were destroyed, and only after public pressure mounted did Bayer quietly pull from shelves. The profits had already been made. This readiness to prioritize commercial success over human well-being would reappear in far darker forms. By the 1920s, Bayer had merged with other German chemical companies to form IG Farben, the largest chemical conglomerate on Earth. IG Farben was not a passive bystander to politics of the era. When Hitler came to power, IG Farben aligned itself with the Nazi state. They supplied synthetic fuels, rubber, and chemicals vital to the war effort. They built massive factories adjacent to concentration camps, most infamously at Auschwitz, where prisoners were worked to death under starvation rations. For IG Farben, these camps were not moral dilemmas. They were cost-effective labor solutions. IG Farben was also tied to production of Zyklon B, the cyanide-based pesticide used in the gas chambers. While not produced under the Bayer brand, it came from companies within the IG Farben network, and the profits flowed into the same industrial empire. Documents and testimonies from the Nuremberg trials reveal an even more grotesque reality. Bayer representatives were implicated in purchasing female prisoners for medical experiments. These experiments, often fatal, tested new drugs, chemical exposures, and surgical procedures without anesthesia or consent. The results were written up in reports for corporate review. This was not rogue behavior. It was business. When the war ended, IG Farben was dismantled, and its executives were put on trial. Some were convicted of slavery, mass murder, and crimes against humanity. But the sentences were shockingly light. Many served only a handful of years before returning to high-ranking positions in German industry. Bayer itself was reconstituted in 1951, distancing itself from the crimes of IG Farben, even though many of the same people now ran its boardrooms. The decades after the war saw Bayer rebuild its pharmaceutical and chemical empires. But the pattern of calculated risk at the expense of human lives continued. In the 1980s, a scandal erupted. Bayer had sold blood clotting products for hemophiliacs that were contaminated with HIV. Once the contamination was discovered, the products were banned in the United States. Instead of destroying them, Bayer shipped the stock overseas to countries with weaker regulations. Thousands contracted HIV as a direct result. Internal memos revealed that the decision was not ignorance, it was deliberate. Destroying the stock would cost millions. Selling it abroad preserved revenue. In the environmental arena, Bayer's actions have been equally contentious. The company became a leading producer of neonicotinoid pesticides, chemicals linked by research to the collapse of bee populations. Bees are essential pollinators. Without them, global agriculture would suffer catastrophic losses. Environmentalists accuse Bayer of funding studies designed to cast doubt on the harm, while lobbying to keep these products on the market. Again, profit was safeguarded first. The most significant modern chapter came in 2018, when Bayer acquired Monsanto for $63 billion. Monsanto was already infamous for its genetically modified seeds and its herbicide Roundup, whose active ingredient, glyphosate, has been linked to cancer in multiple court cases. This merger gave Bayer unprecedented control over the global food supply chain. They now sold the seeds, the chemicals to treat them, and the medicines for the humans who consume the products. It was vertical integration on a scale that alarmed critics and delighted investors. But it also brought over 125,000 lawsuits into Bayer's lap. Lawsuits alleging that Monsanto's products had caused serious illness and death. Publicly, Bayer insisted it is committed to health, innovation, and sustainability. Its advertising is a masterclass in corporate storytelling. Smiling farmers, clean laboratories, healthy children. But the disconnect between the public image and the private history is glaring. The company has repeatedly been accused of greenwashing, using marketing to obscure the ecological and health damage linked to its products. The same careful PR machine that once sold heroin as medicine now works to convince the world that Bayer is a friend to planet. Looking across this history, a clear pattern emerges. It is a cycle. Introduce a product, dominate the market, deny or downplay harm, retreat only when forced, rebrand, repeat. Whether it was heroin in 1898, contaminated blood in the 1980s, be killing pesticides in the 2000s, or Monsanto's herbicides in present day, the through line is consistent. Profit above all else. The names of the products change. The public relations slogans evolve. But the corporate DNA remains untouched. This is not just a history lesson. It is a warning. Bayer's ability to survive world wars, war crimes trials, and global scandals, emerging each time wealthier and more powerful, shows how resilient corporate power can be when it is deeply embedded in politics and economics. The company's influence over food, medicine, and the environment gives it leverage over life itself. And that is why remembering this history matters. Because if we forget, we will not see the next time it happens, and by then, it will already be too late.